Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to our new podcast, Holy Half Hour. It isn't holy, it isn't half an hour long, but it is a fun discussion show about God, faith, and everything else, with some ridiculous games thrown in. This is our first show. When we recorded it, we didn't even have a name for it. So I'm just adding this in to say, hey, welcome aboard. My name is Kieran. The show is called Holy Half Hour. You can find us at holyhalfhour.co.uk and on all good podcast platforms. And you can email us. The address is hello@holyhalfhour.co.uk. We'd love to hear from you. We hope at some point to include your comments in the show, so please do get in touch. When we recorded this, the UK was in the 4th week of lockdown due to coronavirus. We mentioned this in the show, but I wanted to let you know up front for a little bit of context. That's all for now. I'll be back at the end. Enjoy the show.
Hi everyone and welcome to a brand new podcast. My name is Michael and with me is...
I am Kieran. Hello everyone.
Nice. I didn't tell you that I was going to leave a space for you to speak there, so it was really, you picked up on it really quick. It was good.
No worries.
So Kieran, we're doing a podcast and this podcast is all about two friends who are Christians.
With you so far.
Trying to make something that's entertaining. And also something that maybe deals with some of the things that Christians face in this world, but in a way that's kind of interesting and exciting. Not exciting. It's not going to be exciting. Interesting because we're friends. My favorite podcasts are podcasts in which people speak to each other who know each other well.
Yeah.
I find them very comforting. So I wanted to make the same thing, but a Christian version. How does that sound?
Well, it sounds fantastic. And I am, as you probably guessed already, 100% on board.
That's good.
But I think it will be exciting. I hope it will be exciting. It's going to be exciting for me. I'm already trembling slightly. And hopefully our listeners will be as well.
Yeah, I think that it will be exciting if anyone ever listens to it. You know, that moment of having one listener will be an exciting moment, I think, for us. So
yeah, definitely. I think there's maybe... 2 people in my life I can convince to listen to this. So it's great to have you both along, I'll say now, up front.
That's good.
And it's kind of weird, isn't it, Michael, to think that, you know, it's conceivable that there will be people that listen to this.
Yeah, there might well be. I think I can think of one person that I might convince to listen to 5 minutes, but they might have already tuned out by this point. But anyway, this is the pilot episode, so we're not very slick right now. We will, I'm sure, find our feet as we go. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to have a catch up. We're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves. Then Kieran has prepared a special game for me, and I have prepared a special game for him. We don't have a name for our podcast yet, so my game is related to trying to find a name for the podcast. Then each week we're going to kind of float a question. We're going to just discuss something that's maybe in the news or maybe something that's on one of our hearts. This week I'm going to pose you a question, Kieran, and then next week you'll pose me a question.
Okay.
And then we are going to try to find something which is an encouraging content. We're recording this on, what's the date today, Kieran? We're in the middle of the lockdown in the UK, so I barely know what day of the week it is. But
yes.
Do you know what the date is?
It is Monday the 13th of April, and we are,
Nice.
You're right, we're on our 4th week of lockdown, aren't we?
Yeah, 4th week of lockdown in the UK. Where I am in London, we've been in lockdown for 5 weeks now. But you in Scotland, Kieran, have been in lockdown less than us. So some would say you're less hardcore than us. I don't know how you feel about that. But
Well, we Scots are a hardy folk. And we've only been in lockdown for 4 weeks, but we could easily have handled 8 by now. Unlike you soft Southerners. I'm saying all this knowing that Michael's also, we're both from Scotland. And
yeah, we are.
Michael left to go to London to do life things. But he's still... Scottish.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in our next section, which we're going to seamlessly transition into, which is our catching up section. Each week we might talk a little bit about what we've been up to, but in this first one, we're going to talk about a little bit about who we are. So we're going to have a catch up, and I thought it might be nice if we start our first podcast episode asking you, Kieran, if you can condense your entire life story into a few minutes, kind of like a testimony, kind of like a little bit about how you came to know God. Because as a Christian podcast, we're here because we love God. But yeah, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, on you go. Tell me about yourself.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Kieran. I came to faith when I was 14. That was really the first time that I kind of realized that I could know God personally. I think I'd grown up in church, a bit like yourself, Michael. Well, certainly I'd kind of been involved in church on and off, and I'd been going to church for a couple of years, sort of as a teenager. But I'd grown up with hearing that Jesus loved me and those kind of very happy messages, but nothing sort of sunk in terms of this is for me personally. And then I was away at a Christian event with some friends, and it was really the first time that I heard someone talk about a relationship with God or knowing God personally, at least in a way that really connected for me. And so I thought, yeah, sign me up for this, because I think I knew that I'd been searching in my life. I was dissatisfied with my life as it was, and school was not fun for me. I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time thinking about what life was really worth and what was worth pursuing, and found myself dissatisfied with what other people around me were pursuing. And so when I heard this message that I could have a relationship with God, that I could know Jesus and have eternal life, then I was like, okay, I want that. And so that sort of began that journey for me. And then, when I became a Christian, music came into my life in a really big way. So I started playing the guitar in church and eventually singing, because the youth pastor pushed me up the front of church and made me do it, which I'm very thankful for now, but at the time was terrifying. And it just became a big part of my life. And that's continued. I'm a music therapist now. So I work in schools with primary school age children, which is amazing. It's a real joy to do, and it's a real privilege. And so music's always been part of that journey. And so that's what I do. And Michael and I have known each other a wee while, because we live together and work together at a church. This is not our first foray into recording things. We did a little radio show briefly on local radio, which was very interesting.
That was good times.
Interesting to make, that is. Hopefully interesting to listen to as well.
Probably not.
Yeah. So
that's definitely what gave us the ideas of grandeur that we might be able to do this, isn't it?
Yes, the delusions. No.
And where are you now? What, as you said, you're a music therapist. Are you still in Scotland? He asked like he didn't know the answer.
Yes, so I am still in Scotland, bonny Scotland.
Oy.
You take the high road and all, and so that's I'm in Scotland. So Michael and I grew up in the Scottish borders, which, if you're not familiar, or if you're part of our international audience, it's great to have you both with us. Then the borders is like in the south of Scotland. It borders England, hence the name. And so that's where we grew up. We went to the same school, all that kind of thing. We weren't really mates until after school when we worked together. But yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for sharing. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself now,
Please
Kieran,
do.
just in case you're
Please
interested.
do. What is the deal with you, Michael?
Well, my deal is that, I'm not from a Christian family. When we were young, I think I was about 4 years old, we had a neighbor who knocked on the door and said, "Hey, our church has a Sunday school. Would you like us to take your children?" And my parents were like, "Yes, please. Please take these children. Take them anywhere. If you don't even have to bring them back." It was a different time, Kieran. It was a very different time.
Those were the days.
Those are the days. It's a good thing my parents will never listen to this. Otherwise, they might disagree with me on that story. But we went to the church. I really liked it. All my brothers and sisters, I'm the youngest of four. We went at different times. They all kind of stopped going, but something really spoke to me. And people were very friendly and very lovely, and I just kept going. I kind of fell out of love with God ironically, when I was 17, I went to study theology. And up until that point, God had been very cerebral for me. I always liked to know everything about the Bible, know all the stories, know what my opinion about every theological question was. And when I went to study theology, I realized that there was so much written that I could never know even half of the ideas about certain subjects. So how on earth could I possibly know the true answer to those subjects? And that really hit me. And because I didn't have a relationship with God, I just had this mental kind of faith. No, it wasn't a faith. It was just a mental exercise for me, Christianity. It completely rocked me, and I just fell away. I dropped out of uni. I came back to the Borders, and I got plugged into the church that I had come from, the church that Kieran and I grew up in, and being involved in youth ministry, volunteering, and then eventually becoming part of something bigger was really what made me have a real faith. A faith that was life-changing and transformative. And that was modeled to me by people in the youth group, by people just caring about me, loving me, and that was what changed. So yeah, since then, I've been involved in youth ministry and other things like that for the last 15 years. And now I still work for a church. I'm here in London town, so we're a bit far apart. We're doing this over the telephone. I'm in London. I work for a Church of England. I'm the manager of all of the children and youth work, as well as managing community work and a bunch of other stuff here at the church. And the reason I came to London, though, was not for the church. It was actually to study to become a circus acrobat, which is something I also do in my spare time. So also a strange job, also a job that people say, oh, that's a job. So we're the kind of people who have those jobs, but love the Lord, and that's why we're here. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
It's good, man.
How do you?
It's good.
Yeah,
I have a bit of a life story envy. 'Cause it's well established in our friendship that you're much cooler than me, and much more eloquent.
That's just not
and
true.
So, yeah, but no, that's good, man. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, you're right.
All right,
we both do. Sorry, I'm crashing you here, but I'm going to continue.
No, please do. We'll
We
get used to it.
we do both have jobs where people are like, really, for real? That's what you do?
Yeah. Either people don't know what to ask and they're just like, oh, okay. Or they are just, they're super fascinated. It goes one of two ways with me. They're like, wow, I've never met one of those before. Or they're like, oh, cool, bye.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, how do you eat? How do you make
how do
enough
you pay
money?
the bills? I don't. My wife pays.
So, Michael, one of the things I thought we could do is have a little chat about jingles for our podcast, because podcasts have jingles, right? You've probably, if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever listened to a podcast yourself, or any of our listeners out there, but one of the things that you get in them is music, and so I've prepared some music. Now we don't have a name for this podcast at the moment, so I've prepared some little jingles that incorporate our names, Michael. My name and your
I'm
name.
excited.
Okay. So I thought, in the interests of balance, we should do one maybe with my name at the start, and then maybe one with your name at the start.
I like the sound of that.
So why don't you go ahead?
You've sent me these jingles, and I have them, but I haven't listened to them yet. They're just here on my computer. So
Michael has never heard these before, folks. This is live, raw, visceral, first time listening to of jingles time thing.
Hopefully not too visceral.
Yes.
Okay, so shall I play the track one that you sent me?
Yeah, I don't want to do too much setup here because I don't want to color your expectations. But yes, jingles are names in your own time.
Okay, here we go. Track number 1.
And Michael too. So there's, as you can hear, Michael, that incorporates both of our names. So.
Oh man!
Now
I'm gonna have to listen to that one again. I'm sorry.
Please,
Let me have it.
Go ahead.
Have another go.
Go ahead. And Michael too.
I love that.
You like it?
That's extremely good.
Good
Yeah,
man.
That's very, very funny.
Well, I'm glad.
Well done. Well done. I mean, how dare you? How dare you have me as an afterthought like that? That's extremely bad and selfish of you.
Well, I was worried about how you might react to that, Michael, because and listeners, you won't know this, but Michael, you're quite vain, aren't you? I mean, that would be fair to say. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Listen, I'm joking, listeners. I'm joking. He's not.
Oh, I see how it is.
He's not. He's a lovely, wonderful man. But I was worried, that in all seriousness, I was worried that you might be hurt by me putting my name first.
Okay.
And perhaps putting a little bit more emphasis on my name than on yours. So if you listen to Jingle 2, your name's at the start. Okay. So hopefully this patches everything up and we're cool. So have a listen.
Okay. Oops.
Michael and Kieran.
Sorry, I clicked it too early, but that's pretty good.
So what do you think?
Michael
and Kieran.
I think there's definitely more of a downbeat feel to that one. The trombone sounds like farts, and but I do like the sigh. I believe in your disappointment. So yeah, it's good. That's good. I like that one too. I like all of these. It bodes well for the quality of jingles that you can come up with when very closely supervised by me.
Yeah, well, I'll take all your feedback on board and I'll rework them
and ignore it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
I prefer the first one, ironically.
You do? Okay.
It's very epic. Okay, am I allowed to listen to the third one yet?
Well, you picked up a little bit of despondency in the second one there, yeah, which is
a slight.
But the next one is, I'd say, quite joyful, and I thought enough messing around. Let's just have a jingle that has both of us as equals. So hopefully this last one achieves that. So have a listen.
Okay, here we go.
Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran. What do you reckon to that one?
That's great. I love how suddenly it stops. That's good. It really seems like it's getting into its groove and it's just gone.
People often say of my music that they love the end. They love the bit where it ends.
If all the end is like that, then I have to agree. Okay, well, I've got to listen to this one more time. One listen is not enough. Here we go. Yeah.
Michael and Kieran.
Yeah.
Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran.
Nice. Now, I hear that you're playing all those instruments. Is that right? Just like Paul Simon?
Yes, absolutely. Well,
all recorded live.
Yes, all recorded live. No, well, I'll level with you, Michael. I relied a little bit on loops from GarageBand.
Okay, fair enough.
But the badly played saxophone is me.
Oh, it is? Wow.
Yeah,
well, there you go.
I played my broken saxophone to make that recording.
Did you break it specifically?
I broke it specifically, yes, just to get a real sort of raw,
beat up saxophone,
raw,
kind of
soulful kind of feel.
It's great. I'm very impressed, Kieran. I'm very, very impressed.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think we should go with.
'Cause, now this is very important because
okay, sorry.
whatever you choose, Michael, we're going to open the podcast with for this entire season. I don't know how long a season is.
Even if we come up with a name.
Yeah, even if we come up with a name,
I love it.
It will be played at the beginning and end of the podcast and in between every item. So you need to think very carefully about which one. In fact, shall we hear them again?
Yeah, okay. Well, in order of preference, I'm going to go this one.
Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran. Michael and Kieran.
Nice.
Okay.
And then this one.
And Michael too.
Nice. And then I think this one should be reserved for when you make bad jokes.
Michael and Kieran.
So that one might actually get the most play, to be fair.
Touche, sir. Touche.
Well, I'm very impressed, Kieran. Well done. Round of applause.
Well, thank you. A lot of love went into those.
Well, I
and
can
they definitely
tell. I mean,
weren't.
I feel
They
quite
definitely
bad
weren't
about how little time I put into mine after hearing those.
They definitely weren't rejected radio jingles that we reworked into something for the podcast. Well, the last one was a little bit.
Nice.
But the other two were made fresh and made with love.
They were
It was
fresh
all made
cuts.
with love, and I'm glad you liked it, my friend.
Very good. Very good. Well, I mean, I don't. I now that I've heard those, I wish that I had gone first because my segment is definitely far less entertaining than yours. But what I've done is I have taken the name of a famous podcast, well, famous-ish podcast, a well-known podcast, and I've tried to come up with a Christian alternative version of the name. And your task is simply to see if you can guess what I came up with. And if you guess what I came up with, you get 1 point.
Okay.
And anyone listening at home also gets 1 point. And if in your guessing you actually guess something which is better than the one I came up with, then you get 2 points. So, does that make sense? So if you guess it correct, you get 1. If your guess is better than my actual answer, then you get 2 points. And
Okay.
there's a chance we use that as the name of the podcast. So,
Right.
So yeah. So the first one, it's an easy one, I think. It shouldn't be too hard. There's an American news podcast by the New York Times called The Daily. Can you guess what my Christian version alternative of The Daily is?
Oh, I hope I'm wrong.
I suspect you won't be. Okay.
This is good. Well, Michael, I'm going to go with The Prelude.
Oh, The Prelude.
Is it The Prelude?
That's actually quite good. It's not The Prelude. What I went with was The Daily Bread.
Ah, nice.
See what I did there?
That's good. That's good.
That's
Yeah.
good. I'm not sure if The Prelude's better than The Daily Bread. It's certainly more punful.
I think
if that was a word.
I think I prefer yours, to be honest.
Okay.
I think mine is just weird. It's a weird thing to see or to hear, and even in the even in the context of a Christian podcast, I feel like we might struggle to sell that one. So I would say The Daily Bread is much better.
Wow, thank you. So I get that point then, I suppose. Okay. There is I listen to a lot of American podcasts. There is an American design podcast. This one is extremely tortured. I have to warn you. It's really awful. Called 99% Invisible. Can you think of a really tortured Christian version of 99% Invisible? We'll cut out your thinking time.
Yeah, sure. That's probably a good idea. 99% invisible. What could that? How would you turn that into a Christian podcast?
How indeed, and why?
Doodle-doo,
99.
Any
Any thoughts?
percent found sheep.
Oh, yes. You're right on the money there, Kieran. Absolutely.
Okay.
What I went with was leave the 99% to find the one.
That's good. It's good, man. It's quite long, I would say.
Maybe a little on the long side. It's not going to fit onto too many T-shirts.
The other way I was going to go, the other way I was going to go, the other answer I thought of was something like 99% invisible gods.
Yeah.
Because God is invisible.
I was thinking that too.
But
yeah,
he can be seen in things.
Yeah.
In creation.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the word. That's the word I was
there's
looking
something
for.
there for sure. I think I was worried that if I started to be like 99% invisible or, then I would be getting into some dodgy theology,
Yeah.
and end up being a heretic. So
Yeah.
I went for a really tortured one instead. How about another American podcast? Don't worry, there's some British ones coming, called This American Life. This American Life. Now, this one isn't too tortured and it's not too strange. So just what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Is it This Armenian Life?
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking of things we could call this podcast, and seeing as we're both Armenians,
Are we?
what I thought was I would go with This Armenian Life.
Information break. Folks, this is a little information break, just to clarify. When I say Armenian, I am referring to Armenianism, the branch of Protestant theology. I am not referring to the country Armenia or the Armenian people. Hopefully that's clear. And that's the end of this Information break. That's it. It's a very deep cut. That's a deep theology cut for our listener who is into that.
Yeah. What I went for was This Christian Life.
Christian life. That's much better.
See? Yeah.
I was trying to think of
it for me.
I was trying to where my brain went was I felt like I had to find a word that ended in "an"
that rhymes with
to replace American.
I have got some more specific rhyming ones coming up. Don't worry. No Such Thing as a Fish. That's the podcast by the QI Elves here in the UK. No Such Thing as a Fish. What's the Christian version of No Such Thing as a Fish?
This is good. No such thing as fate. No such thing as a fate. No such thing as a luck, which doesn't make sense. but the idea being, God is in control.
Oh, yeah. I get it. Welcome to our podcast, No Such Things as a Luck. I'm Michael, and this is Kieran. Don't worry, God controls all things. Yeah, that could work.
Well, yeah. Now we need to decide whether we are Armenian or not. That's a little throwback to the previous one, listeners.
I see what you
Yeah,
did.
I feel like I feel like my suggestion is not super clear that it's
Well,
even a podcast.
To be fair, whilst yours doesn't make grammatical sense, mine doesn't make sense on any other level either. I actually went for 3 such things as a fish.
How many?
As in 5 loaves and 3 fish. Three such things as a fish.
Okay.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No? Okay. See how you get on with this
How
one.
many fish was it in the story? Was it 3
Was it 2 fish?
Was it 3 or was it 2? I feel like it was 2.
Well, there's
But
actually
it's the thought that counts.
there's actually 2 separate miracles in
Yeah.
the Bible where Jesus feeds people with loaves and fish. Did you know that, Kieran?
Yeah, that's true. So you've added them together.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
I think you need to go back to the Bible and just see how many fish are mentioned, okay, before you start casting stones.
Okay,
all
man,
right?
you're right. I'm so
Although I
judgmental.
suspect you might be right there. I think it's 2. All right. Okay. There's a famous, I think it's Radio 4 audio soap called The Archers here in the UK, as most of you will know.
Yes, there is.
And it's also a podcast, a very popular podcast, because people like to listen again later. So is there a Christian version you can think of for The Archers, Kieran?
For The Archers?
And this is the second last. This is your penultimate question, because
Right.
I'm sure people are just praying this ends very soon.
Man, I could do this all day. This is I'm having a lot of fun with this. I would have to go with. I feel like there are two things that come to mind, if I may offer two.
Please.
The first one is The Preachers.
Oh, nice.
And
I like that.
The other one is
unfortunately it would indicate that we're actually preachers, though, which we are, but not really.
Perhaps false advertising. Yeah. Although we have preached. You're a
we do
preacher
both
more
preach
than I am.
regularly. Yeah.
You're currently in ministry.
Yes, that's true.
And every believer is in ministry, I suppose.
Well,
but you're in
absolutely.
the ministry where you get some money as well. That sounds really dodgy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That sounds terrible.
Okay, let's just sidestep that one. And
I feel like I need to pull on the handbrake here to avert disaster. What I mean, listeners, is Michael is employed by a church and nothing else. I was not implying anything else with that.
Yeah, donation for a blessing. Okay, what's your second guess for The Archers?
I don't really know. Something about like archangels. But,
2 points.
Oh, was that what you
went? No, 1 point. Sorry, I went with the archangels. Or the archangels, depending on how you say that in your locality.
I was actually
well done.
I was actually going to go with that first, and then I thought, no, it won't be that.
Nice. No, you did a good job. Well done.
Okay, thank you.
Never doubt how rubbish these might be, Kieran. So, okay, this is the last one, but I have come up with 4 options. So you've got 4 chances to guess what I went with.
Okay.
And I would say that if you actually manage to guess one of these, then the world might actually end. So,
well, that's a lot of pressure, man. That's a lot of pressure.
Well, exactly. There is a podcast, again, an American podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience.
Yes.
Which is a very popular podcast. I have Christianized The Joe Rogan Experience in 4 ways, 4 very torturous ways. And I wonder if you can guess one of them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4.
There are 4, yes, 4 options. And why don't you take a guess and then I'll give you a clue if needed.
Okay. Guess 1. Mm-hmm. The John the Baptist experience.
That's good. My clue was going to be that I kept the and experience. So it seems like you don't need my clue.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't go for the John the Baptist experience, but I like that.
Okay.
Would you like to hear one of them?
Sure, tell me one. Guess? Yeah, tell me one. That'll get the ball rolling.
Okay. The No Romans experience.
I feel like
easy.
That's
because in Jesus' time they were like, boo Romans. Yeah.
So we're sort of we're setting our stall out quite early then in our run that we are anti-Roman. Yeah. I feel like we might risk losing some of our audience. Although
that's true.
Romans aren't that technologically advanced, so maybe won't have access to the podcast, and they don't exist anymore. You're right. That's a very good point.
That's true. But maybe that's not the name to go for. Would you like to take another guess at one of the other 3, or shall I just tell you my incredible thoughts and amazing way that my brain works?
So we've got the No Romans experience. The Grow in Holiness experience.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think mine rhyme a little bit better than that.
Right,
but,
I'm sure they do.
So my second one is the Word Spoken experience.
Okay.
Because, Jesus is the Word.
Mm-hmm.
The Lazarus Woken experience.
Yes, we found it. Stop recording. We stop the presses. That's the podcast name. Say it again.
Yeah,
sorry.
Absolutely. The Lazarus Woken experience, Kieran.
Yes, very good.
Yeah. And finally, last and least, the still ocean experience. Because Jesus calmed the sea, you see.
If there's one thing...
Still ocean experience.
Absolutely. If there's one thing I've learned from contemporary Christian music, it's that the Lord loves to still an ocean. He loves to calm
really
a storm
does.
in my life.
Oh, yeah.
He does
Any
it all
storms,
the time.
they will be calmed.
Absolutely. Well, and I love the Lazarus Woken experience, but I feel it might work better for like some kind of psychedelic rock band.
Yeah, it does definitely sound a little bit like that, doesn't it? Like the Jimi Hendrix experience, but it's the Lazarus Woken experience. It's good. Well, this has gone on far too long already. I can I feel it in my bones. But I think we can all safely say that it was a waste of time. Well, each week we're going to talk about something prescient in the news or just something that we're facing as humans. And I think it would be a little bit tone deaf if we didn't at least acknowledge in some way all the chaos around coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic that is affecting the world right now. And I guess I just wanted to talk about your opinion, Kieran, and bearing in mind, we've both been in church a long time. We've worked for churches. I currently work for a church, but neither of us are ordained ministers. Neither of us are in the leadership of like the greater leadership of a church. We've been in church leadership. What do you think churches? How do you think churches should be responding to COVID-19, to the pandemic, to the lockdown? How have you seen churches respond? Do you think we're doing enough? Can we do enough? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just thoughts around how churches should be responding, I guess. So, yeah, I guess my first question to break that down is, how are you still in church? Is your church still meeting? How's your church responding without dropping anyone in hot water?
Yes, we'll avoid the hot water. That's a good call. Yeah, so I think we are still meeting, like I'm sure all churches in the country, we're meeting virtually. So before this last few weeks, I had never heard of a video conferencing platform called Zoom. But they must be making a lot of money because it seems that now everyone uses Zoom. So there's a little plug for them. We're not sponsored by Zoom.
That's cool.
But yeah,
that's good.
We're still meeting virtually, which is interesting.
So you're on Zoom, which is a kind of everyone speaks on the same platform kind of thing. So does everyone get muted and the preacher preaches, and everyone get muted and the worship leader worship leads, or how's that working?
So what I've seen churches doing this a few different ways. What we've been doing is we actually do Zoom hangouts for our community groups, and we do them midweek, and then we do a short one before the service on a Sunday, which is really nice, actually. And then the service, we started out doing Zoom, but I think now it's just sort of live streamed and you can just sort of watch it on YouTube. So that's where we ended up going.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of very similar position, I think. We're, again, like you, a much greater emphasis on connect groups. We've had another like 50 people plugged into the connect groups who weren't in connect groups before, which has been really great. Meeting on Zoom, and again, like you, we're recording parts of a service, making it into one long video, and then casting it at our normal service times on a on a platform by YouVersion, which enables you to like chat and have a Bible tab and all this stuff. And then I'm, like I said in the introduction, I'm in charge of the youth ministry stuff. So we've been making 4 videos for various age groups each week, just telling stories, setting challenges. And I think our main kind of emphasis has been around what can we do to create community rather than just create content. Like, we're not professionals. We don't really know what we're doing. We're doing a decent job, all things considered, but we really want to be doing community stuff. So if we're making a video for children, then it's like, send us in your pictures that you draw, blah, 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 blah. Anything that we can really just encourage people to feel like something bigger is happening, because obviously right now we all feel a little bit disjointed. We're all missing meeting with people. So yeah, anything to create community, I think, has been key for us.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a great emphasis. And I think that's really when we put aside the actual virus itself and the death toll, which is shocking and it's terrible. I think loneliness is also a significant threat with the virus because of the way that inevitably we've had to isolate ourselves. And certainly I live alone currently, so I haven't really had any physical contact with anybody for like 4 weeks. I mean, not even being able to high five or hug somebody, and that is hard. And I think that is one of the key ways that we as church can help people, is to provide that kind of community, as you say, and to provide a space where people just don't feel as alone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's fair to say that that's part of what we want to do in this podcast. Is we're friends. We love talking about Christian stuff. We want to create a feeling of friendship that can be listened to by others, that's kind of uplifting and Christian, in that it doesn't have any dodgy content, and it's family friendly, and it deals with Christian issues. But also, in recording this, we want to spend more time together, don't we? So to kind of alleviate that sense of loneliness that I think we're both experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's good. So churches meet together. Community has to be a key focus. We can be praying, obviously, we can pray from anywhere, and prayer can be a key focus. But how do we do the mission? Go and make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. How do we reach people? How do we love our communities that don't know God? In a time where we're not allowed to spend any time with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a tough question, because we can't, be in physical proximity really to people who are not part of our household. So then, I suppose a big way then is through our existing networks, our existing kind of friendship groups and work groups and that sort of thing. Perhaps there's even an opportunity there to, and this is not something I've done, I'll say, but it's something that, I would love to do at some point, is even, if there's someone I could invite even into a Sunday broadcast. And maybe then we could talk about it after or something. Because in a way, the sort of virtual church is quite a nice, unobtrusive way to invite people into something where they might actually ordinarily be quite intimidated to walk through the doors of a church, because it's not something they've done before or haven't done it for a long time. So I think practically that's probably a way that, that could work quite well. I think a big thing that's been on my mind is just the fear that comes. And I've heard people talking about this, the fear that there is associated with the virus and the unknown of who's going to get it, and is someone I love going to become ill, or am I going to become ill, or am I transmitting it without knowing it? There are so many unknowns, And I think definitely we as Christians, because we know Jesus, the Prince of Peace, we have an opportunity to say that actually there is a hope for us that goes beyond death, because we know the Lord, and because and we've just celebrated, it's Easter Monday, in fact. We've just celebrated that Jesus is alive, that he defeated death and rose again, that we might have eternal life. That, of course, is the hope that we have, and the hope that we can bring to others.
Absolutely.
And so, finding ways to communicate that, I suppose, is the challenge. But I would think that at this time, when death is a much more present reality than it normally is in the Western world, I wouldn't be surprised if there are actually quite a lot more people than normal who are thinking, man, what is my life about? And what things are really important? And, is the meaning of this life and what might lie, is the meaning of this life and what might lie beyond this life something that I should investigate? And so, in a way, I think people might be even more open to hearing about Jesus than they perhaps would be in ordinary circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, excuse me, here in London, obviously, we're a lot more in tune with things that like HTB and other churches of that ilk are up to. And I know that they've been launching an online expression of Alpha, which I think has been really popular. And they've kind of have a template of how to run Alpha online during this time. And I think those kind of options can be really powerful. Like you say, it's a much more soft transition to invite someone to watch a video. It's a way in which we're used to consuming media. It's a way in which we're used to being, there's the anonymity of being behind your screen that makes people more comfortable. So there's never been a better time if your church is doing some kind of online expression to invite friends who don't know Christ into doing that.
Absolutely.
I think there is also, I think there might also be an onus though, isn't there? I live in an area of London where it's almost entirely non-Christians, and I think there has to be some form of church mobilization to addressing the issues at hand, and I think that that's very difficult. So some of the things we're trying is making sure we're looking out for our neighbors, like the immediate neighbors of the actual church itself. We're partnering with a food bank locally. The food bank, our local food bank, has said that they're experiencing 4 times as many requests as they normally experience, but also they're having far fewer donations, obviously because people are panicking and they don't know if they have enough. They don't know how long they're going to be stuck in their houses for, etc. So we are having volunteers from our church drive around to people in our church and anyone else who wants to donate, and they can leave their donations on the doorstep, and the person who's driving can call them, say, oh yeah, I'm just on my way, I'm about to be at your place. So basically the person goes around, collects all the donations, then takes it straight to the food bank. So it's minimal contact, but people can still donate. And just trying to think of those kind of ways. We also have some phone chains, some prayer chains, like we discussed, but it's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one to know how to speak to your community in a time where you're not allowed to leave the house. It's challenging, very challenging.
Yeah, I love that sort of practical expression of, as you say, driving around, delivering things that people need, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, it's good. God is good, and we have to try, where possible, to kind of reflect that He never stops. He's never inactive. In every situation and every challenge that we face, He's always doing something. I think often we feel this kind of, I don't know, personally in my life, when I am in a difficult time, I imagine God in this very passive way, like, life is awful, I feel terrible, my world is falling apart, but I know God is passively with me. He's like beside me. But actually, I think it's much more, God is actively advocating and fighting for us, He loves us. He's doing something very positive and very active in those difficult times. Whether or not we can always see that or are open to listening to Him is another thing. But when I'm feeling very down, God isn't just there like, I'm here for you when you need me. I'll just sit here quietly. He's actually like, hey, remember all those amazing promises about your identity that I tell you, and I love you, and you're amazing, and you're chosen, and you have a purpose. And I'm just like, la 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 la. I don't always listen to Him, but I think I like to think of Him in a more active way. And I think in this time of challenge, how can we be actively responding? And it doesn't have to be that I'm not advocating that we disregard government advice and start being like, sorry everyone, God's active, so I can't isolate. Obviously we have to be, and I think that's the one thing I would say, that churches have to be emphasizing that we need to be following the guidelines. We need to be isolating. We need to be loving our neighbor by not infecting our neighbors, right? That has to be number one, protecting their lives. But how within those confines can we also be doing active things is, I think, something that we can consider at least.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this is definitely a time where that scripture about submitting to those in authority is applicable. I would have to look up the reference, I'm afraid. But yeah, I think that is part of our witness, is to be, sensible about it. And to not unnecessarily put others' lives at risk, but to also, at the same time, in whatever way we can, express that actually we don't need to fear death. And that's not to say that I don't experience fear around death and around getting ill. I absolutely do. But I know in the midst of that this life is not all that there is, and that there is a hope beyond this. And so communicating that, and communicating that we can know God personally and have eternal life is such an incredible thing. And I think that needs to always be a core part of what we communicate when we're out there doing good things for people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. Appreciate your thoughts on that. It's Romans 13:1, by the way, in case you're wondering, where it is about submitting to authority.
Thank you, producer.
But you're welcome.
Good save.
Someone's whispering in my ear. No, it's good. I appreciate your thoughts, and hopefully that some of those thoughts are useful for those listening. The last section, like I said at the start, is, do you have anything encouraging? Any content that's entertained you? An album to recommend, a film to recommend, something you've seen on YouTube or a streaming platform or something else, or a book you enjoyed, Kieran, during these challenging times? Have you got anything that you can encourage us with?
Sure. I've during the lockdown, I've sort of rediscovered Audible. Other audiobook providers are available. But I have a few tokens stored up, so I decided to have a look at what is out there. And I started listening to Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which is a book I had been meaning to get into for quite a long time. And I was actually in Poland last year and went to Auschwitz. And it was just an incredible experience. I mean, obviously, it's a terrible thing to see. Even now, it's chilling to see what happened there, or the remnants of what happened there. But the book is really, really profound, and I think has some great insights about how people get through something like that. And in a way, I'm not gonna try and make any sort of equivalency between what people went through in Auschwitz and what we're going through now with this pandemic. They're, I suppose, different kinds of suffering, both valid, obviously, both real, I mean. But I'm not going to try and make some equivalency, but I would say that one of the biggest takeaways from the book I had was all about, the author sort of observes that the people who make it through their time are the people who can envision a life after Auschwitz. They can picture, I'm going to go home, or I'm going to go and, I'm going to see my wife again, or I'm going to pick up my business where I left off, or whatever it is that brings them hope. If they can sort of center their thoughts around that, then that will get them through. And the author, I don't know if he has a faith personally. It does come up a bit in the book, but I'm not really very clear. But one thing he does do is write beautifully about his wife, and thinking of his wife and longing for his wife, and picturing her and imagining even conversations with her as he goes through his day. And there's something about that I just thought was a really beautiful sort of analogy for prayer and for putting our hope in God. Because in order to get through a difficult time like this, I think we absolutely need something to hold on to, something that lets us say, this situation is really, really bad, but it's not going to be like this forever. And even if my life were to end, then I have a greater hope. I have something to put my faith and trust in, and that is knowing Jesus. And so I love that thought of Viktor Frankl sort of wandering around, well, not wandering, but in Auschwitz and being very much treated very badly by his captors and all of that, and in the midst of that, sort of going around having these sort of conversations in his mind and imagining what his wife would be saying to him. So there's something really beautiful about that, I thought, as a picture for sort of having that, speaking to the one you love, and that sustaining you through a difficult time. And, I wish my prayer life was always like Viktor Frankl's imaginary conversations with his wife. I want to be more like that in that sense, and look to God more throughout the day. But I just thought that was a beautiful picture.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. So what was the name of the book again?
It's called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's by Viktor Frankl. It's available everywhere. It's I think if you haven't heard,
everywhere where books are sold,
in all good bookstores and audio bookstores.
That's great. Thank you so much. That sounds amazing. I definitely have to add that one to my list, my ever-growing list of things I want to read during this time and afterwards. Well, mine is a little bit of a YouTube. I am a big fan of C.S. Lewis, as are you, Kieran, I know, and as are many of our many favorite preachers, Tim Keller. I love Timothy Keller and reading his books and listening to his podcast, and he is always a big proponent of C.S. Lewis. And I don't know how it came about. I think it was just in my suggestions on YouTube, this channel, which I don't know how much it's updated now, but C.S. Lewis, a lot of Mere Christianity and his other writings were broadcast on the BBC in the 40s. And someone has hand-drawn all these animations to accompany those excerpts of his book that have been read. So the channel is C.S. Lewis Doodle on YouTube, and it's just a really great way to take on board some C.S. Lewis. I think it's such rich writing, such an incredible mind. And it's always valuable, even if you don't agree with everything that C.S. Lewis wrote and thought. It always makes you think, and it makes you think about the big picture and the big questions of life. So C.S. Lewis Doodle, I really recommend it. It's really well made and really, really visually compelling. The drawings that go along with the audio. So yeah. That's my recommendation for something to entertain yourself with and also kind of enrich your experience during this lockdown times.
Cool. That's C.S. Lewis Doodle.
C.S. Lewis Doodle on YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out, man. That sounds really, really cool.
Well, thanks so much. If you somehow managed to find this podcast and you've actually listened to it, or if you've gone back and listened to it after listening to a subsequent podcast, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our podcast. And it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Kieran, for joining me today.
Cheers, Michael. Yeah, this has been it's been a lot of fun for us, and we hope that you'd enjoyed it too. So thanks, everybody, for whoever you are out there in listener land. Sorry, that's really lame.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Lame. Yeah. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Michael and Kieran. Hey, me again. This is just a reminder. We would love to hear from you. You can find us at holyhalfhour.co.uk, and you can email us. The address is hello@holyhalfhour.co.uk. This is a weekly show, so we will be back next week. We hope to see you then. Thanks. Bye.